Hey folks, Rick Mackey today. I'm out in the woods a little bit, just trying to get into my survival mode. So tonight's live. We're going to be discussing. We're going to take a little, change in mindset and what we're doing here from the looking at the problems all the time to thinking about how we can, bring in some solutions and be prepared, perhaps both physically and spiritually. Tonight's show will be more on the physical side about discussing things about survival logistics, prepping, and you know, and the title of the series is going to be "What's in Your Bug Out Bag." Okay, so we'll get to like looking at those things a little bit later on. Maybe not this episode, but maybe in some of the future episodes we'll get into that part. So let me get started with a little intro on that, what we want to cover tonight, and see. We'll give it a little rundown here. So I want to talk about things like just like some basic bullet points of, how many supplies can we actually store in a situation where we're trying to prepare for a disaster? Uh, what how many and where and how do we store them? Like what is the logistics behind that? What kinds of supplies should we store? Meaning, like thinking about different types of supplies where, some that you might have to take with you in your bug out bag. You're not going to be able to take your full set of supplies depending upon the scenario, right? Um, Underground bunkers, are they all what they're cracked up to be? I don't know. Think about that from a standpoint of, are they safe? And how good were you about not letting other people know you even have one, So the next bullet point we're going to discuss, depending upon where you live, depends upon where you go to bug out, right? Do you have a place to go? That's the other thing. Is your wardrobe up to the task of survival? Meaning you can't just throw on your jeans and head out to the northern mountains. You have to have the right equipment for the right terrain and the right territory. So that's one thing to consider. Then let's see, what else do I have here? I'm just like, I kind of wrote down a lot of these points earlier. They're not really organized or anything like that. It's just kind of jotting down a bunch of ideas and questions that I've always had. How do we talk through that a little bit tonight? So, what was the last one here? Oh, what about your medication, right? Like people that are on medication, what do they do, right? So we'll get into that discussion. Let's see. Do you know the wildlife in the chosen bug out area? So that's another thing too. You need to make sure that you're aware of any particular animal threats that might be up in that area, and maybe you need to equip yourself with a weapon or something to make sure that you're going to be safe in your travels. And talk a little bit about the idea of having faith in God and everything. If the what hits the fan at some point, so we'll get into that a little bit. But there are, let's see. Okay, we'll skip that point for now. There are a few major categories that I can come up with in my own mind about different types of, I want to say, scenarios, right? So you have a long-term, you want to prepare for different types of scenarios. A long-term situation or scenario, a short-term situation or scenario, or a sudden accidental emergency. So let me explain a little bit about each one of those. Okay, so getting into this topic of long-term scenarios, these are the things that we hear all the time. People talking about solar flare taking out the power grid, or a massive EMP event caused by an enemy attack, or even a bogus banner. We all know what that means, right? I'm not going to have to explain that. Again, I'm going to be speaking in code a little bit because I don't want to get kicked off the platform here. So unfortunately, we have to speak between the lines, and you'll have to read between the lines. So then we have something as bad as a nuclear attack. What would you do in that case, right? Most likely being not much we can do in that case, but depending upon where you are and where that took place, you may or may not have a problem there. So next thing would be, let's see, what's the next one? Let's see here. So EMP event, right? Nuclear attack. In this scenario, you'll likely need to already have learned the skills to be able to survive each of those types of events. Communication is very important. So what I mean by that is you need to know like what's going on around you, right? So if these communications are taking out the cell towers or whatever, we're not going to necessarily have any sort of ability to communicate with each other. So we have these. There are these radios that you can get that are basically they they're the same radios that you would listen to, like I think it's the NOAA weather channel or whatever. It's also they transmit emergencies over these radios, and I'll probably get into a little bit of that and kind of show a piece of equipment that is solar powered. So you don't have to worry about like carrying batteries with you or stocking up on all that kind of stuff. You can just have this solar powered radio. And also, if you don't have sun, it has a little crank up in the back of it where you can just crank up the power to generate your communications. So knowing what's going on is very important in an event of emergency, because if it is an EMP event, all electricity goes out, all communications go out, cell towers, whatever it is. So we have to really be that. So anybody who's waiting to come on, I'm going to actually have you come on a little bit later so I can get through some of these bullet point discussions first, and then we can maybe go back and we'll bring somebody in. So here we go. The next point is you might not be able to obtain your bug out bag. Okay, so depending upon how severe the emergency is, you may or may not have access to even your bug out bag. So you're going to need to have some kind of like real skills that you've learned that you can take with you into the woods with nothing. Like you wouldn't have anything, right? All you had maybe is a few things in your car. So I want to say to people too, not only should you have a bug out bag, but you should always have something with you wherever you go. What do you have with you wherever you go? You take your car most of the time, right? Now, if you don't live in an area where you're driving a car and you don't have that with you all the time, you're living in the city, that's a little bit more difficult. But in that case, probably everybody's going to be looting the stores. Maybe, I don't know, trying to find supplies to survive with. Let's hope it never gets that bad. Let's see. What's the next thing? Again, I was just writing all these points down earlier as points of discussion here. So I just want to get all these out before I see Dave sitting there waiting too. I'll have you on, Dave, in just a minute. I'm going to kind of run through these a little bit so we can get some ideas thrown out there, and then we can go back and talk about them a little bit. So one of the things you want to keep in your car possibly is a high quality survival blanket. They have these little blankets. They're probably like $20 or whatever. That'll save your life. It's basically a foil lined blanket that might have a polyester material on the outside that's very, very warm. As long as you can reflect back your body heat, you will survive through just about anything with something like that. It's amazing. You watch some of these shows on TV where they have these survivalists, and basically they're not carrying much. They don't have a lot of heavy equipment when they put themselves into these situations. And even in the desert, you have the extremes of the extreme hot during the day and the extreme cold at night. It can get down to I think they were saying down to almost near zero, I want to say, in the desert sometimes. At least as low as 20, I read somewhere. 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so the point of having these things with you, having something with you all the time, is so that you can at least get out to your bug out area, wherever you decided that you're going to bug out to. You can get there, you can build your shelter, you'll have something that you can wear that's warm enough to keep you alive. We live in the Northeast up here, and we always have to make sure there's something in your, like an extra jacket, something like that, in case your car breaks down and you're in an area where you're not getting a cell signal. A lot of times that happens up north in New Hampshire where you just simply don't have the signal and you're kind of get yourself into some trouble there. Let's see. So once you get yourself to your shelter, right? So a duplicate set of clothes you can survive long term on. So that's another thing you want to keep in your car. Something that you can use to survive with. I just actually bought a pair of these are tactical pants here. I don't know if you can see them too well. They're amazing though. These things are like military grade. See if you can see them this way. Maybe I'll do a zoom in. Hold on a second here. Zoom to the table. So these things have like all these pockets in it, for putting things in. You have a section here. I don't know if you really can't see too good in the light, but it has like a. Why do I have that behind me? Hold on a second. Oh, that's right. All right, so it has a section here for knee pads, believe it or not. So when you're out in the wilderness, right, and you need to sit there for a while, and you're on the ground and you're digging a trench, your knees are going to be killing you. So this has like built-in like hard knee pads that you can slide into the front here. There's all these different pockets, and you can cinch up the strap around the boots area. I mean, it's this kind of thing that you're not going to have, if you're just grabbing your jeans or trying to run to the woods. You need to have something like this to survive with, something ready to go. And like I said, in the Northeast, you're going to be really freaking cold. So you might have, something like this in your car or your backpack or something, where it's allowed to, it covers the face, it covers the neck. And, you have a little bit of space here. You put your goggles in there. So this fits over your head. That's pretty amazing, right? Good stuff. So, I mean, all this stuff, it's not too expensive. I mean, everything costs money if you want to be a prepper. So, I mean, we spend money on all kinds of other things. And I'd rather spend my money on being prepared, So let's do that one. All right. So back to what we were talking about here. Just trying to get down through all these different scenarios here. Where was that? Oh, where did I leave off here? Sorry, folks, lost my place there. Okay, so another scenario could be, for survival would be like, what they're talking about with the volcanoes and creating a tsunami and all that, like you need to think about the logistics of, in that scenario, where would you go? You would go west, obviously, if it was the East Coast, right? You wouldn't go north or south because it's not going to matter if you're near the coast. You just got to get yourself inland, right? So that's not a scenario where you're going to need to survive like in the woods or something. You're probably just going to rent a hotel, as long as you can get yourself out of there. That's the whole point. But if you get stuck in it, then you're going to have to do something. You're going to have to figure out what you're going to do there. Then there's the hurricanes and tornadoes. That's kind of a similar situation where, you're sitting at home, hurricane comes ripping through. You got to figure out what you're going to do for communication, how you're going to keep the lines of communication open. Again, a radio is a good idea, a ham radio or a two-way radio or something that's going to allow you to still communicate with people I just actually started looking into that the other day. And then let's see, perhaps get used to packing up. Okay, so here's another thing you could do instead of waiting it out, right? Like a lot of people do. They say, "Oh, I lived on the East Coast my whole life." But the problem is these storms are getting worse and worse, it seems like, every year. So we got to start thinking about, well, maybe when some of these more extreme storms are coming through, maybe we actually pack up and move, just get away, get out of its path, and then just come back, the next day or something. I mean, a lot of people, like my whole backyard, like this last windstorm, wasn't even a hurricane, just blew my whole fence down, 32 feet of fence, just came whipping down. Never seen that before in my life. Never, never, never. There was more trees down and more power lines and everything down than I've seen in many years. So, and that was not even a hurricane. It was just, this wild weather that we've been seeing. Okay, so then you go into the next more major kind of thing would be like a terrorist attack on a major city. Uh, so cities and buildings taken out, bridges, roads bombed, that kind of stuff. What would happen? People would have to form local armies and clans, right? And just like the old days, and here on the East Coast, the East Coast has all the history, right? Where um, people formed their groups back then. The colonists did against the British, and it was back in April 1976 to September 3rd, 1783. That was the time frame for the Revolutionary War, and I know a lot of people don't know that happened right here in Massachusetts. I even ask people like, hey, you know what the shot heard around the world is? Like a lot of people are like, oh no, what's that? I'm just like dumbfounded. You live in Massachusetts and you have no idea of your own history, your own country's history. It's pretty sad to hear. And for those of you that don't know what the shot heard around the world is it was the first shot fired at Lexington Green when the British were here to try and take away the colonists' guns and ammo because they didn't want them to have that ability to fight back. Kind of like what's happening today, right? Not much different. So they're trying to take that right away from us. So we need to learn our history so we know how to basically, what we're going to do in the future because, history repeats itself and not only the bad part, but the good part, right? We can still, we can, as long as we stand our ground, I think we'll be able to, deal with any sort of resistance of, or any form of tyranny or oppression, just like in the old days. Yeah. And in fact, right after the Lexington Green, they went to Concord at the Old North Bridge there, and they actually were met with more resistance there. So, and ultimately we won that war. It took a long time, but I think it was 1783, September 3rd, 1783, when we were really, really free, no longer battling the British. So let's see. What else we got here? I'm getting down there. In my little bullet points here. Community resistance or social breakdown, right? Community resilience or social breakdown. There's the two arguments, right? So people think one of two things can happen in a disaster scenario. They think either all of society is going to break down and we're all going to be robbing and killing each other, or there's going to be what's called community resilience, where people actually come together and help each other, right? Those are the two main theories. But I also know that I think there's going to be a little bit of both. I don't think it's going to be one way or the other. Psychology tries to say it's going to be one way or the other. It's not. It's going to be a little bit of both, depending upon where you are, depending upon the politics of the area, depending upon how close your communities are and how well you can organize and help each other. And then there's the short term. So those are the long term like types of disasters that could happen. And the short term scenarios are like if your electricity goes out, like it did the other day with our storm. Are you even prepared for that? A lot of people weren't even prepared for that. Or like Texas, they weren't prepared at all for anything like what happened to them, during their debacle there with the weather. So I'll try to skip over some of these points. Won't get into too much because let's see here. Power generator. All right. Well, I could. There's actually a lot more bullet points than I thought. So I am going to bring Dave in at this point, just because I know he's probably got some good ideas on what we're going to do with this here. Hello, my friend. It's good to have you back again. How are you?
Yeah, good. How are you, Rick?
Very good. Very good. So I'm trying to just go through some I put down a whole bunch of bullet points of things to discuss today about survival, right? I'm trying to switch the gears a little bit. Instead of always focusing on the problem, we could do that till the cows come home. It almost feels like, we're just preaching to the choir at this point, or it's sort of actually for a long time it's been that way. So I want to focus and be more solution oriented, right? Like what can we do to prepare ourselves and our families in the event of something bad happening? also how do we prepare ourselves spiritually. So there'll be two different like areas. I want to focus on the physical survival today a little bit though, and kind of maybe I'll get your ideas on how, like, I know your territory down there, you're near the ocean, but I know a lot of Australia is like almost like a desert, right? In the middle portions of it.
Oh yeah, the majority of Australia is inland. Surround the
Yeah.
coastal areas is more livable, but we've got large areas of desert. I mean, I remember driving across South Australia, and you can drive for hours and hours and hours and still see nothing.
Wow, that's crazy. So if you were in a if you were in a such scenario, right, where you had to get away from where you are, right, to survive something, like how I always think about like Arizona, even like how would anybody survive a desert, right? You watch these shows with Bear Grylls and what's the other guy's name, Survivor Man. I don't know if you ever saw that show. I used to watch it all the time, and they put themselves into these situations and they barely get themselves out of it. These guys are professionals, right? You're talking about special ops guys and people that have this high level of training to know what to eat, where to find water, and all that kind of stuff. And I would say the desert would be one of the harshest places to try and survive, you know? And if you have to go inland, you're kind of like stuck with that, right? For the most part.
Yeah, I think the main thing that you want to have is water, and you can
Right.
actually buy these solar water heaters, so you can you can purify your water with these things.
Oh, nice.
So if you do
Yeah,
find
I
any,
have one of those. I just bought one of those actually. You can. It's like it'll boil the water, and it's a solar heater, and it opens up like two fins, and there's like a center tube, and you fit the water. You put the water, or you can even cook food in it too. You can boil a hot dog or whatever you want if you have food with you. It's kind of a cool little contraption, but the thing is finding water in the desert. How hard is that? Like I saw one show where somehow the guy came upon a puddle somewhere. I guess it does rain occasionally in the desert. I mean, because the cactus have to live too, right? So it's not all dry all the time.
no, I've never really tried living in the desert. I've driven across it, but I I believe that you can at night. There is moisture because, as you said earlier, that the temperature goes down. So whether you can gather water there, I don't know. Or there are ways of if you find plants getting whatever moisture is in those things.
Yeah, and even the cactus, I think if you know how to do it safely, you could probably strip one of those and get quite a bit of water out of it. I think I remember Bear Grylls did that on one of his episodes. You need a long knife for it, though. You need something where you can. I think you need two knives. You need one to hold it, and another one to kind of trim it all off and get it to where it's safe, where you can get to the meat of the plant. And you can actually eat the cactus too, I believe. I don't know if it tastes all that good, but depending upon the variety. But hey, if you don't, the thing is like knowing which things you can eat, which things you can't. And I just got this book at the advice of a friend of mine, actually. It's called The Forager's Guide to Wild Foods. This thing here. I don't know if is this backwards in the video or is that straight? You see it?
Yeah, I can read it. Yeah.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure. No, yeah. So this is like, I guess this person was on one of those shows, survival shows. It might have been even that one, Naked and Afraid, where they put them in the woods naked with no clothes. They got to like try and find ways to like protect themselves and make clothes and do all this stuff. But she wrote a whole book. She survived the whole show by herself, just with her knowledge about plants. So she was able to go through and pick out and know which things to eat, which things not to eat. There's a lot of berries in the Northeast that look almost identical in bushes, and they're both bush-based berries. They're red, these little red berries. Some of them are poisonous, and some of them are actually very good for you. But there's little details about the plant that you need to know. So having handbooks, things that you can have with you in your backpack is you got to have this in your bug out bag. Otherwise, you got to resort to the old way, right? Where you take the plant and you rub it on your skin, and then you wait a day and see if you had a reaction to it, right? Then you do that and you catalog your own. You have your own like way of cataloging the plants. You maybe keep a specimen of that plant with you and try to memorize what it is. Hopefully you can, but the Northeast is a little tricky. There are some things that you can eat that even look like poison ivy. Actually, you got to be really careful. So I probably would find like things that don't look like something else. As my first thing to go after. In fact, that someone told me the cattails. My friend told me the same one that told me about the book. The cattails behind me right here, those are edible. I had no idea. I grew up with these around here all the time, and I never had any idea you could actually eat those things. I think I tried eating one time, and Mom said, "Don't eat that; you'll get sick." I don't know if I believe that. No. So so we're starting a local group, and we're going to start like getting into that kind of stuff where we go out in the woods and we try to find these plants and see what they taste like, see what it's just kind of get acclimated to what's in the environment. And the thing that's tough with the Northeast though is because we have pretty harsh winters. I don't think we have a lot of vegetation that we can choose from in the winter, so we're gonna have to resort to animals, eating animals or trapping or something like that. And down there, you probably would trap. I don't know. Do people eat kangaroo down there?
Oh yeah. It's quite nice actually.
Oh, no kidding.
You've just got to be careful how much you cook it. You can't overcook it because it becomes very tough. Yeah, I've had kangaroo, and I mean they're two a penny in Australia, so they're considered a pest in some areas. So you can legally hunt them.
Yeah, I saw a video of a guy who his dog was being attacked by one, and it was standing up on its hind legs like a boxer. So the guy went up and punched him in the face. He just was so stunned. Like this thing was so stunned, and it just like took a step back, and he's like, "Oh," and he ran away. It was the funniest thing ever. But I guess
they sit back on their towels, and they can actually their rear legs can come up and rip your guts out if you're not careful.
Yeah, right. That's what I heard. Like I heard all these things. It's like, how do you you would have to shoot one at a distance, most likely. Are they really? Do they attack people a lot?
Oh yeah, they can be. Yes, especially in mating season. So the big reds can be quite dangerous.
Wow. Yeah, here rut season would be for like the moose. That would be the most dangerous animal in the Northeast. During rut season. Oh man, yeah. Have you ever seen a moose at any time in your life? Like gotten up close to one?
Not up close.
Think of the largest horse you could possibly imagine, and then maybe add a third to the height of it. Like like the Clydesdale or something. Like just a massive animal. Some of the older moose in the Northeast are about that big. They're massive. They're tons in weight, and you don't want to hit one. You don't want to hit one of those with your car. You're not going to survive it. You might get up and shake it off, but you're not going to survive it.
I think the bears will be the thing I'd be more scared of.
Actually, the bear isn't as we don't have grizzly up here. That's the West Coast. So on the East Coast, we don't have any of the real aggressive bears. The only time you really run into a problem with a black bear is if you're not making noise in the woods when you're going through the woods to begin with. And you always should be making noise so the animals know you're there. They don't stalk humans. It's not their natural prey. So it's not something that they would do. But if you stumble upon a mother and the cubs, yeah, you might be in trouble. They're not going to probably eat you most likely, but they're going to bat you around. And the best thing to do in that case, the first thing that they say to do is to put your arms up over your head and, act bigger than you are kind of thing. Don't make any sudden moves. Just put your hands up like this, to kind of make yourself appear to be bigger. You see the female brown bear is a little bit, not brown bear, the female black bear is a little bit smaller than the male. So, they might still be somewhat intimidated if you were to do that. And then The other thing is you don't ever want to do is run. Never run from an animal because they'll immediately go into the predator mode, and they will go after you. So stand your ground, keep your arms up, and hope for the best. I guess that's all you can do. But most of all, they say you want to make noise. If you're hiking in the woods around here, that's usually at the lower elevations too. So a lot of the times, if you want to take the trails, even the old Indian trails, a lot of the trails along the what do they call that? The Appalachian Trail. Sorry, I couldn't even think of it for a second. That goes all the way from northern Maine all the way down to like South Carolina, I want to say. No, Georgia. It goes all the way down to Georgia. So a lot of those trails, they take the high road. They're up in the mountains and stuff. So you're up in these mountain passes. You don't see a lot of wildlife up there most of the time, unless you hit a prairie or some kind of flat area. So if you stay on the trails, most of the time they know those are well traveled by humans. So they get the scent off of that too. So they know when people are coming, when they're going, and they try to avoid it for the most part, unless it's one of those areas where only they can pass only through the use of that trail. So, and studying the trail and knowing and maybe contacting a ranger, a forest ranger, or something like that would assist you in knowing where to avoid those kind of creatures.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yesterday I was watching David Paulides. Do you know David Paulides? He's the guy that investigates all the missing people.
Yep.
In North America, and he was giving one of his updates, and this was someone missing from Hawaii, but he's talked about a lot, mainly in the national parks, how people just disappeared, never to be found, and no trace of them. Some people apparently have just disappeared. Have you ever seen any of his videos?
I have. I saw that. What was it? Missing 411 or something like that.
Yeah,
what's the name of it? Yeah. And that just blows my mind. Some of the things, and one of them was almost like. I think some of the cases might be sociopathic killers or something like that, because you have that one where the guy's boots showed up in a completely different area, and there was all this like parts of the guy's belongings in different, like the backpack was over here, the boots were over there. It was almost like someone was messing with the investigators on that one. But then there's the ones where you're saying they just vanished. There's no trace. There's like nothing anywhere. Like what happens to all these people? Is it just a sociopathic killer dragging them home and burying the bones in the backyard? I don't know, but it's awfully weird. And that's not just one park. That's in all the national parks, mostly on the West Coast, right? Mostly on the West Coast. I heard some cases on the East Coast, but not very many. That's the weird part.
It's normally near water, apparently.
Yeah. All of Maine basically doesn't. I mean, there's some rivers and stuff, but there's not like a lot of lakes there. There's a couple in the southern portions of Maine. And then, of course, you have the coastline there, but it's pretty barren land out there. There's not a lot going on up there. There's not a lot of people even up in there, like doing things anymore.
Apparently, there's been cases of people just dematerializing. Someone just walked behind a tree and just literally disappeared.
Yeah. What was that one? I remember that one. Vaguely remember that one.
Yeah, and then
I gotta go back and watch that.
There's a little child disappeared, and apparently the child was found right up a mountain. There's no way the child could have got there, and it didn't look as though an animal had dragged it up.
Oh, it walked miles from where it started, right? Like something like 30 or 40 miles or more.
Yeah,
I think it was more, maybe even more than that. And it was just a small infant. There was no way in the woods that would be possible, right? That's just crazy. Do you remember which forest that one was? I know that was West Coast too, or it was up in the. I want to say
could have been Washington State.
Washington, yeah. I was going to say Washington. Yep. Well, that's where all the weird energy and vortexes are, right? That's where James Gilliland's ranch is, and all the. There's a reason if there is a so-called alien base up there, or whatever it is, they're using the energy of that area. So there's probably some pretty, maybe there's even a portal there that they can climb in and out of, you know?
Yeah, I definitely want
Somewhere
to
in
go
that
to
area.
Hiseti Ranch one time. So if I'm ever allowed, if I can ever escape from Australia ever again, I'll come over, and I'm hoping to go to Hiseti one time. Maybe we can meet up there, mate.
Yes, absolutely. That would be fantastic. I was just going to say, let me know when you go. We can go at the same time.
Yeah, I was going to go
Uh,
last year actually. That was my plan. So I spoke to James
yep.
when I met him at Dimensions of Disclosure, and he said, "Yeah, come up anytime you want." He goes, "We'll put you to work if you stay long enough."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, he said that to me too. And
Yeah.
I would be honored. I'd be honored to do that. If I had the time to like spend a month up there, just to be in that area. And I just being at Dimensions Disclosure that time where we all felt the chills in the room when he gave his speech, and after the fact, I went and talked to him. This was like on the last day when everybody had already left, and he was kind of like hanging out with a couple other people, waiting for their ride to the airport. And I walked up to him and I just wanted to let him know that, like, all the people that I talked to, and I think even you, said that they had they got the chills, when he was up there speaking. And he says, "Oh yeah, I called in all the spirits. I made sure that I did some deep praying. I had the night before, and I had everybody, all the saints and the different ascended masters come in." And even just saying that right now, I just got the chills on the back of my neck. you know, oh
Yeah.
my
He gave me
gosh.
a little preview of his show on the first night I got there. That was the day before DoD started. I sat down and at the bar. I was just going to get a bar meal, and then next thing I looked around and he's James Gilliland standing right behind me, and I'd only just
That's
started watching
crazy.
his SETI videos, so I just turned around and said, Hey, James," and he sort of looked at me, and I introduced myself, and he said, "I just come down for a spot of dinner." I said, "Well, do you want to join me?" So he sat there, he joined me, and next thing we got Clifford Mahuti came along. He's one of the
Oh yeah.
the Sunni elder, and he was another guy. So he sat down and joined us, and then a girl called Christina, who I'd met earlier in the day, come and joined us, and we all had a lovely little dinner, a few drinks, and he started showing us all these pictures on his phone that he was going to show at his presentation.
That's
It was a
crazy.
strange experience. It's like I just turned around. It's like I knew him, but
Yeah, I felt like
I,
that with everybody there, including you. Like I felt like I knew, and it's freaking me
yeah,
out because like that was the first time in my life I felt like I was with my family, like the people that I was supposed to be with around. Like
that's what
you
I
align
say.
so
Yeah,
well energetically.
yeah, that's exactly what I say, Rick. And I say they were star people there. So there was a lot of people who were star children that have lived in other star systems, and I believe they were all drawn. They're all drawn to that one place. And the funny thing is, people have told me, "Oh, yeah, Americans are, they're great when you meet them at the time, but none of them keep in contact." Well, I can say I'm still in contact with probably 20, 30, 40 people from that. And I feel like they're all really good friends, that they're people I know. It was a
Yeah,
strange experience. I've traveled around the world before, and I've kept in touch with a few people, but it seems on a deeper level with the people I met in California that during that 3 days, and in others, I went down to San Diego afterwards, and I met people down there. Same thing happened down there. I'm still in touch with some of them as well.
I got this overwhelming feeling when everybody started to leave. I was actually I cried a little bit. Okay, I'm not gonna say like I was bawling or anything, but I had a few tears rolling down my eyes because
I
I
feel the
felt it
same.
that deeply. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't like believe that the weekend went by that fast. All that information and all that energy, that positive energy, and all the people's stories and the different crazy things that were happening to all these people that were so aligned with this stuff. People that were abducted since childhood, different stories that they're telling me. And I felt like I knew their story, and I've seen their face before. Like
Yeah.
I've seen that face before. Like somehow I know these people, and I don't get it. It freaked me out a little bit.
I call it the gathering. I mean, when I first arrived, and it's my first time ever in California. I've been to Florida before. I've been to Washington. I've been to Hawaii. I've never been to California. I got there, and first of all, I was excited to get there. I got to the hotel, and I'll tell you, the moment I got to the hotel, people came up to me. I've never known such friendly people in all my life. I mean, the first two people I met this girl, Christina, first. We sat down. She said, "Oh, do you want a drink?" When they often got a beer. Sat down. Next, Ben and Rob come walking out. So we called over to them. I knew them well from having watched Edge of Wonder, and called them over and had a chat to them. Introduced myself to them. They recognised me because we were Facebook friends at the time. And then next thing. I started talking to, I think you might know her, Sue, SRO.
Sue, yeah.
Yeah, Sue and
Oh,
her husband.
I didn't know she was there. I did not know she was there.
They're two of the first people.
You know, it's so funny. That was the other thing. That was the other thing, because I was already friends with some of those people too, right? So it was almost bizarre that I found out two people I didn't see. One was Sue, and the other one was Lura. I didn't actually see. Well, I actually found out like later in the, like maybe the last part of the weekend, that she was still there, but we weren't able to sort of hook up and get to meet each other in person. But yeah, I didn't know going into it, like who was going, honestly. And
well, this other lady came along and she says, "Oh, look, I'm going to go and get something. Go to the local supermarket, get some food. Do you want some breakfast stuff?" And I said, "Well, okay, yeah." Here she goes. It'd be cheaper than eating at the hotel. So I said, "Well, how much would you like?" She goes, "Oh, don't worry about that." She says, "I'll just get it, and you just give me the money." Anyway, she gets me all this food like milk and cereal and bread and butter. And I said, "How much do I have?" "Oh, just give us $10. It must have been $30 worth of food. No. She goes, "Just give me $10. That's fine." And like, I've never known that to happen in here. And the people here in Australia are friendly, but I've never had anything like that. I've never had people so friendly in all my life.
Yeah, it's funny because like everybody that I talk to on Facebook that I'm friends with like that are all spread out in different places. It's almost like the universe has it set up that way so that we're ready in all the different places. But you take a state like mine, and you got a lot of really close-minded people, unfortunately. And when it comes to thinking outside the box, that's just been my personal experience. I'm not judging anyone. I'm just saying it's like almost like the way you're feeling about your area where it's not quite as friendly. Same kind of thing happens here, but when you meet individually with these people in a meeting like that, you realize that maybe there's a reason why we're not all in one place. That wouldn't really work out well, would it? Like we wouldn't have that sort of influence if we were all just in one place. Because we'd all just be influencing each other, and it would be nothing really accomplished there.
No, well, I'll tell you a story. Look, when I went to Hawaii one time when I was in my 20s, I think I was 28 back in the 80s, and I had this weird feeling when I left, and I've never had this feeling before, and I thought I'm gonna meet someone over there, and I kind of thought, yeah, that would be great. I'd love to meet. I'd always wanted to live in California, right? So I went over there thinking, yeah, wouldn't it be nice to meet someone? Anyway, on the very first day, I met this girl from actually South Australia. And we sort of hooked up, and she was there for 3 days, and we kept in touch. The day she left, I met this girl from San Diego, not San Diego, from Sacramento. And then, yeah, we were just friends. We sort of hung around for a while, and I ended up writing to her for years. And we really did get on very well. But the funny thing is, I actually ended up with a girl from Australia, and she came over to England. We got engaged, and then I followed her out to Australia and lived there. Now, I felt like there was a choice. There was a choice. Like if I wanted to go to either place, I suddenly knew a person in both places. But for some reason, I felt drawn to Australia, even though I'd always want to live in America all my life. Australia appealed to me, but it was here that I ended up. And I felt like I was drawn here. The relationship didn't work out. We were together for a couple of years, but it brought me out here. And then I thought, I'll just travel around. I intended to go back to the UK, and I traveled. I was on my way to Queensland. That's right up north on the east coast. and I came through Sydney. Now, I hate big cities. I worked in London for eight years. Stopped in Sydney. I was going to stay here 3 days. Well, I've actually been here 30 years now. So and
Wow.
I remember going into Sydney. I just wanted to go to a couple of agencies to see if there were jobs. There wasn't many jobs around at the time because we were in a recession. And I sat down at a bench looking through a map, and this guy sat next to me, and he said to me, "Oh, can I help you? Are you lost?" I said, "Yep." And he tried to help me. He didn't really give me much help. And he said, "Oh, well, he goes, I hope you find what you're looking for." And he said, "I just want to give you this." And he placed a card in my hand with a white back on it. I turned, and he walked off. I turned it over, and it had 3 words on it: "God has spoken." And that moment, it was chills ran up and down my spine. I've never felt anything like it. It's, if you've ever seen the Celestine prophecy, they talk about signposts. This was a signpost. It was like, this is where I want you. And then events, it's a long story, but events unfolded after that. I got a job, and I ended up getting married and having a son. And yeah, I ended up staying here for 30 years. I'm still here at the moment. 3 days I was going to stay here. I was heading to Queensland. Deep down, I'd always wanted to go to America, but here is where I was. And now, when I look at what's happening in the world, and I see a lot of people, well, here in Australia, are really struggling at the moment. I mean, it's really, really tough. There are a lot of very evolved people over in the US. Not so many here, and I feel that they wanted somehow people were needed here, and I feel that there was a reason for me to end up here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the universe has a way of just putting people where they're supposed to be, aligning scenarios and situations so that, my experiences with going to a medium, for example, have been so amazing. Like some of the synchronicities that have happened, some of the things, even in the medium's own life, were entangled with my own life, in different ways. And it's like, how is this even possible? Like that you go at the right time with the right people, and all of a sudden all the right things happen. It's like, and it's unplanned. You don't even, you think you're following your heart a lot of the time. I feel like we're not just following our hearts, but we're guided to be in certain places, and certain events will happen to put you in that spot. Like you just described.
I think your
And
oversoul actually determines a lot, because, I mean, I don't know if you at certain stages in my life, I've always felt an overwhelming compulsion to maybe leave somewhere or be somewhere, even though I don't want to do that, or even leave a relationship or join a relationship, even though that wasn't what I was looking for. I get an overwhelming feeling, and I believe it comes from your oversoul, because your
yeah,
oversoul knows fully well what your mission is, what your point is in life. You may not realize that, and you may think, "Oh, I want to do one thing," but the oversoul thinks, "No, no, no, that's where you're supposed to be," and it knows.
yeah, it's funny. That's so true. Like when you think when you try to force something, for example, to happen, and you keep working hard and hard and hard. If you're always having to work hard, you probably got to take a step back and say, all right, you know, if all of these scenarios and these things are being thrown in your path to try and block you from, accomplishing something, maybe you're not really paying attention to what your true purpose is, or what you're aligning yourself with, you know. And I usually see, like, even in a job or careers, like you get to a point sometimes where you almost get burnt out. You no longer enjoy the work and this and that, and all of a sudden things will start happening, with the work and with the employees and different people around you, your boss. Everything kind of just falls apart. Then you kind of look back and go, well, maybe there's a reason for all of this thing, that's happening. Maybe I need to reevaluate, and maybe there's a new stepping stone for me. But it takes paying attention to what's being brought to you. I think, like a lot of times we ignore all the bad stuff, and we just keep plugging along in the same old, rut that we're always been in. And, so maybe, we got to stop, we got to do the meditation, really feel into it, to see what's the next best thing for us.
I think that's really
Yeah.
important. And the trouble is, the way civilization has been set up is people are caught up in the debt slavery system, or have been up to now.
Yes.
And people don't really have time to think about that sort of thing. I remember when I used to work full time. I mean, I would come home absolutely exhausted, and I'd have dinner, I'd watch a bit of TV, and I'd go to bed, and then I'd wake up in the morning, get back on the train, go back into Sydney, and go back to the office, slave away again, come home. And it was just like that. And the only free time I got was at the weekend, and then I exercised. I didn't get much time to exercise during the week. So I didn't get a lot of time to think or meditate.
Right. And you ask yourself, is this all there is? Like, at some point, you get to a point where you're like, is this all there is? Is this all that I'm supposed to be doing? This is why I don't watch TV. I don't waste my time on things that are useless, because if I'm going to spend my time on something, I want to feel like I'm either accomplishing something or I'm learning something. That's what excites me. That's what makes me happy. That's when I know I'm aligned with my purpose, And I don't think that I've done my job yet. I don't think maybe I've done a little bit of work, sharing things with people, trying to share the truth and this and that. But I think I've been stuck in the rut of trying to show people, what's true, instead of like focusing on developing myself. And we always get stuck in that, you get stuck in that cycle of really trying to, again, force something to happen instead of just sort of allowing it to happen, and setting out the right vibe, and, not being angry about what's going on in the world, and just sort of taking it day by day. I mean, it's tough. It's scary, but that's why prepping, I think, is important. Like, if you prepare yourself, at least you'll have the confidence to know I have a plan. I have a plan for when stuff hits the fan. What am I going to do? And how can I help my neighbor? It's not just about me. Prepping isn't just for me. It's to help other people, to build communities when it hits the fan. And that's where we're going to be bringing in this spiritual stuff again, because look at what happens during a hurricane, right? For example, what happens 99.9% of the time? You think people are all just trying to, rob each other and hurt each other? No, they put all their differences aside, politically, whatever, and they don't ask those questions. They don't say, "Hey, are you a Republican?" before they help you. No, it doesn't happen, because that's the heart of humanity. That's what we're all supposed to be building and manifesting in this world, and that's the focus we should be having. And you reminded me of that our last session there. In fact, I've been getting reminders from other people too about that, where it's most important to focus is to be, seeking solutions, both physically and spiritually, mentally, the whole 9 yards, mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. During this whole last 2 years of crises, and even ongoing now, what it's done, it's forced me to change my life. I mean, at the moment, I still can't go and socialize the way I used to for various reasons. And so it's making me spend more time alone, focusing on my fitness, focusing on my mental health, spirituality, watching interesting things that come up. I'm learning a lot. It's not exactly what I want to be doing. I mean, I would like to go out to a restaurant, or go out to a bar, or a club or something occasionally, at least a couple of times a week, which I can't do at the moment. But
I think it's coming, though. I think it's coming. I think we're switching. We're starting to see things, like you said. You're starting to see things in the news that seem to be positive. Yes. At least not positive, but they're at least now sharing the information, where they used to block it before. And
the narrative is changing.
The narrative is changing. Subtle changes, right?
And that's happened in the last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even with the Rittenhouse trial, I thought they were really going to nail this kid. I mean, because of how the media was talking and everything else. And turns out justice prevailed. And I think that's no mistake, that our freedoms are being maintained here. Our rights, our basic human rights that were given through the Constitution and from God, right? That there was some influence and some, help from above, I believe, on that case. And,
I was so relieved to wake up and hear the verdict. I was praying for that young kid. I feel very sorry for him. I can't believe that other people were out for his blood. I mean, honestly,
They
it's
had two
amazing.
jurors quit. They had two jurors taken off the trial because they were harassed and threatened,
Yeah, it's
by
terrible,
the
isn't it?
opposite side. It's terrible.
Terrible.
To
Yeah,
say, well, I can't be part of this because I don't feel like I'll be partial anymore. They tried very hard to taint this thing. That right there should have been a mistrial, honestly. But
I agree.
I'm
Absolutely.
glad I'm glad that it came out the way that it did, though, and the way that it should have. And to me, I've seen a lot of things switching in that direction now. The court cases for blocking the mandates, that kind of stuff. It all seems to be happening in the last couple of weeks, like you said. So I feel like there's some
Absolutely.
momentum going here. Something's changing finally, and I'm feeling it too, internally, like a little more confident, a little more excited about what could be coming.
Well,
To
only a
say the
short
least.
time ago, Rick, only a few weeks ago, if there was a demonstration here, there could be 30,000 people, and the media at best would not mention it. At worst, would say, oh, there's about 300 people there or 3,000 people. Well, yesterday we had our World Freedom Day, and there was big demonstrations in Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane. And I was absolutely shocked this morning on Breakfast TV. They're showing the crowds and they're saying thousands of people were here. They wouldn't have been doing that 2 weeks ago. And they're actually saying
Wow.
what they're protesting about, the anti that and various things. They're actually talking about it now. And I thought, actually, that's not a subtle change. That's quite a big change. How they're actually reporting on it, and they've got a few people. They were talking about Dan Andrews, who I was talking about last week, um, and I saw a report from Channel 7 on Dan Andrews. Well, he's been getting death threats, so I mean that's pretty bad. And they mentioned that, so they did mention the negative aspect, but they also mentioned what it was that people don't like him for. So yeah, very refreshing to see it. And I've noticed a few other reports are coming through as well. So there has been a change. There seems to be some sort of design behind it all. So whoever's pulling the strings is saying, right, you can now talk about that, whatever.
Yeah, almost like this was planned all along, like everything that's going on. And, we've sort of been, a lot of people have been alluding to that, but I wasn't really convinced necessarily, but I'm starting to get convinced, actually.
Well,
You're
what I
fading a little bit
recommend
there.
I recommend to everyone, Patel Patriot, if you've heard of him, and also Seth Man in America. They've been talking about devolution, continuity of government, which I won't go into too much, but he's got a great series. You can actually enroll for free and you get all the updates on it. I think he's up to number 13 or 14 at the moment.
Oh, I think I might have
And he's
lost
come
you
up with
there.
hard evidence to support it. And yeah, I don't want to talk about it too much here, but if you look into it, he actually explains things very carefully, and it's very convincing. So if you need a bit of encouragement to believe that the T-Man is coming back, read some of this stuff from Patel Patriot.
Okay. I think the main point we just cut out on. So, what was it that he said about the T-Man? Because
About
your signal got cut out, and you're actually looking a little pretty grainy right now. So we might have some
there's,
interruptions here and there.
there's probably reasons for that, so I won't say too
Yeah.
much more.
Right. Right. So let's keep it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be a little sensitive, but yeah, I get it. So I'll actually look into it, see what he's saying, and I can find him on YouTube or website.
Yeah, I think I might have sent you the link. No, I don't actually have it written down here, but
That's all right. You
yeah,
can
if you
send
want,
that to me later.
yeah, I might have even sent it to
So
you.
yeah. Possibly. I get so much stuff from everybody. I forget what I read or what I didn't read. Honestly, it's so much. It
Same
gets to
here.
be overwhelming. So sometimes, you're like you want to know everything, you want to retain it all. But I just, even with my job being all about uh, coding and languages and memorization, it's like after a while, my brain just doesn't have enough to fit in there permanently.
I
So
know I'm struggling
it's like,
keeping up with it. I mean, I don't have to work anymore. I do a bit of work, but it's not necessary. But that gives me lots of time to do a lot of digging into things. But to try to keep, I've got notes and
yeah,
I try to keep links to things. It's all very
it's tough.
confusing. And as I was saying to you earlier, um, I'm now getting different stories from different people, and one party says disregard this other party because it's disinformation, and then the other party says, "Oh, don't listen to them because we've got the truth." It's like, who has?
The thing, the
What's
thing of
right
it is,
anymore?
nobody. No, I don't think either one of them have the truth. I mean, who knows who has the truth? It's kind of like, okay, I will listen to both, but when they start going after each other, I don't know. I That bothers me a little bit. It's like you could say what you believe, the other person could say what they believe, and you might say, all right, maybe it's not true, but how can they know absolutely? Because even with their sources, who's to say their sources aren't lying to them? You know,
Oh, I know.
they might believe it.
Yeah,
They might believe what they're being told, but they could be told a lie, for God's sakes. I mean, just because they're supposed to be these, some of these contacts we're talking about are in contact with higher dimensional beings doesn't mean higher dimensional beings can't be deceptive either. You know, Depends on, I don't know. Someone tells you they're fifth or sixth dimension. How do you really know? If you can
yeah.
still physically see them, you don't
How do
really know.
you know?
So I would
No,
take everything with a grain of salt and go by how I feel, and that's usually my best guide. You know, 99.9% of the time. I
I've
think
got
there's
a list.
good in everything.
Well, I've got a list of people that I feel I trust. I've watched them; they've been very consistent. Their body behaviour and their language
Mhm.
is trustworthy.
Yeah.
And yeah, I normally can figure out liars, people that aren't being honest. But then, as you quite rightly said, where they're getting their sources from, um, how do we know? So they're so-called insiders. We don't know those insiders. Maybe they don't even know them that well. There is psyops, so there's a lot of confusion. But one of the things I think is happening at the moment is truth is being put out, but then it's also being contradicted deliberately. It's like
Right.
chaff, right? So if there is a big, huge covert military operation going on, which I believe there is, they're not going to make it easy to see this. They may put the truth out there and then cover it up and then confuse people because that's the way of military operations.
Yeah.
You don't put it all out there, but you might want to put some of it out there so some people can hear it. And so I think that's what's happening at the moment. I believe that people are deliberately contradicting each other. I won't mention any names at the moment, but I think you know who some of the people that I'm
Hmm.
thinking about. But I
I
think
do.
it's part of I think it's part of the process. I think it's to actually
But I think it's like
confuse.
I think it's different groups pulling the strings, though, right? And those people that we're talking about may not really even know all of the truth themselves. Even if they claim to be intuitive or whatever, it's like, yeah, you can be intuitive, but you're not going to get 100% of everything right, and you can still be deceived. You know, I'm intuitive. I have like empathic abilities. I get little messages that come true all the time.
Me too.
Day in and
Me
day
too.
out. And
Yeah.
it's like, so I try to listen to what's in my heart and what I feel about things mostly. And then if I don't like something, I don't not stop liking the person because I don't know what their deal is. I don't know if everything seems to be like contradictory, which a lot of the other people that I've dropped over the years, like, I used to follow them and I would listen to them logic, and then I would find one little thing. Then I find another little thing that was, not consistent. And I'm like, okay. Then I would see a lot of ego injected in there and a lot of anger and all this other things. And I'm like, all right, this whole narrative is falling apart. Then I stopped following the person.
Yeah, they're
But
good telltale signs.
for the ones we're talking about that might have a little bit of infighting or contradicting each other, I think that's okay. That keeps us all in check as to making us think about things, And I think that might be intentional, It might be done intentionally for us to sort of sift through all the information and make a decision for ourselves. And that's the way it should always be. You don't ever just follow any one person, and say that they're the sole source. You can only come through us. As soon as someone starts to say that, then I feel like, can I trust that person anymore? Because you're saying you're the right.
Yeah, one of the videos I watched today, that's exactly what they said.
Yes.
That we're the only source of this. And then so what it's done, it's actually put me on alert. What I like are the people that say, look, this is my opinion. This is what I believe. This is what I've been told. But they say, don't believe me. Go off and do your own research. So the people that do that, they get my interest because they're not saying rely on what I'm telling you. They say, go off, do your own digging, do your own research, find out for yourself. And then if you find evidence to contradict what I'm saying, bring it back to me and we'll talk about it. Now, I like that.
Right.
I also like the people that say about, look, you've got to meditate, you've got to go within and try, like develop your own intuitive abilities. That's a good sign when people are asking you to do that. And then they're saying, well, don't just listen to me. You've got to go off and do your own work. These are the people I listen to and I start to take seriously.
Right. Even if see, the thing with that message, though, that wasn't clear was that the source sending that message, or was that their upper, what do they call it? I don't even want to say because I don't want to point any fingers, but was it their source, the highest level source or whatever was saying that the message should only come through us? Because like I said, even the sources themselves could be corrupt. They could have an ego. They could have, they could not know everything, right? Just because a being is advanced doesn't mean they know everything. They certainly don't know everything about God. Nobody does. I don't care which, dimension you're living in. It's like you can't know it all because otherwise you'd be God. But that's just the way I feel about it. So yeah, everything has to be taken with a grain of salt, and you follow your heart, like you said, and you might go down that path for a little while and find something there that you don't like anymore, because everything can be influenced over time too. So a lot of good people have gone the wrong way. Started out with the right intentions, and they sell themselves out, unfortunately.
I like consistency. When someone is consistently saying the same thing, they don't weave and turn. I mean, one of my favorites is Dave of X22. I mean, he's been so consistent. I've been listening to him for the last 4 years, and yeah, he doesn't switch and change. He always beats the same drum, and he does repeat himself over and over again, but he never contradicts himself.
I feel like it's not just him though. I feel like he's working with a team of people, honestly.
Oh, I do. Yeah.
It might even be a certain letter of the alphabet.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
Feeling. Yeah.
I'm just saying, because so much of what he's done is in line with that, and it's almost like a continuation of that. Like, he never stopped. I thought he would be done once. I thought his stuff was so close to what the letter was doing that I thought when that they stopped communicating, that he'd stop communicating, or at least slow down a little bit. He hasn't slowed down at all. It's almost like he still has a strong inside connection somewhere that's got some really accurate information.
He's beating the same drum he was beating 4 years ago. And he was the one. He was the one.
And the end we know guy. And the end we know guy, same thing.
LT. I like LT. I think he's a very, very, very genuine guy. He does become a bit despondent at times. You can hear it. You can hear it in his voice.
Yeah.
But he never loses faith. He's Christian. He's very Christian based.
I like that. I like that he has the faith, that he brings that part to it, because that's actually my
Yes.
favorite part of it. Because we're sharing these people are sharing a lot of really dark stuff, and they're able to face it every single day and still maintain a positive attitude. That in and of itself is amazing. Like all the stuff you and I are, all the people in the disclosure community are consuming on a daily basis. If you can wake up with a smile on your face, you're doing the right thing, in my opinion.
I love those two. Santa surfing. Do you ever watch Santa?
Yeah, she's great. She's great.
Oh,
Yeah,
she's fantastic. She's in communication. She's on Twitter at the moment. She's in communication with Silvergate, whoever that is. But Silvergate's giving her a lot of information that she's sharing. Whether that's accurate or not, I have no idea. But it sounds good to me. And there's
so much truth that's being proven too, though. So that's what I tend to focus on, is the stuff you can prove, the stuff that they've researched, the stuff that you can, all of the information and the time that they save us from actually going to dig this stuff up ourselves. When you find contacts like that are doing a lot of the work, and you can go to look up something at a government website and confirm what they're saying, it's like, whoa, this has to be real, or at least parts of it, So I tend to, if they're doing the extra work like that and it comes true, that's just mind blowing.
Yeah, well, a lot of it has. I mean, Dave was the first one Dave of X22 was the first one that mentioned about the Reserve Bank, and when it came under the Treasury. And I'm saying, I was telling people that, and they go, oh, what about rubbish? And about a week later, it starts coming out that apparently that is the case.
Yeah, it's almost like they have a week or two lead on it, And it's like, how did they get that information? And then you realize, well, maybe their contacts really are real. And they've even said to their contacts, some people's contacts have purposely put out disinformation to throw off the bad guys, whatever. That's the part I don't like. I'm almost like, why even do that, If you want people to believe, I don't know then. I mean, I guess it's a tool for them too, right? It's a tool for them to use the people that they have in order to throw off the bad guys, I guess. But it does upset us, and it does make us feel like, we've been jilted in some cases. When they give a date, for example, that was a real trend there for a long time with Charlie Ward and those guys. And I'm okay, after the fifth date, when do you stop and say, okay, let's not count on this, So they finally started doing that and started acting like it's going to happen. It's going to happen on this date. They were doing that in the beginning.
Oh, and then, if you go back to early last year, and coming up to November, they were so certain what was going to happen, and they were so certain what was going to happen in January, and it didn't happen, and everybody got disheartened. But I say at the end of the day, this is a war. I mean, I believe we're in the third world one, and well, it's a psychological operation. It's not a war with bombs. It's psychological operation. It's
an info war
operation. It's an info war, a digital war, and there's both sides. And to fight on either side, you can't be all goody two shoes. You have to do things that aren't always good.
Right. Or might seem to be like you're ruining your reputation or whatever. But you got to do what you got to do. It's a war. You fight dirty sometimes. If the enemy fights dirty, you kind of have to counterpunch. These are the counterpunches, and you have to make, in the art of the war, you make your enemy think you're losing when you're winning and winning when you're losing, or something like that, right? So you kind of have to throw them off, keep them confused,
Exactly.
So I do think
I do think the good guys are using the quantum technology And I believe that the line that they're following, what they are doing, is the one that will bring the least amount of casualties. There are always going to be casualties in a war, and there have been. There's been many people who are not around now, or they're permanently sick, and there is going to be collateral damage. But I believe that they've followed a line which was the very lowest amount of casualties that would result.
Yeah, if you figure if you're a soldier, that's what you do. You sit down and say, well, how can we accomplish our task? Because the enemy's not going to stop. The enemy's going to do what they're going to do. If we can lessen the impact on what they're going to do, that's why some of the things that we think certain people support certain things might not be true. Because you know what I mean, like the big T supporting certain things, and that might be part of the game that he's playing. It's almost like a bluff or something.
Yeah, but I do think I do hope something happens soon, though. I mean, what happens in America will affect what happens here in Australia. Our two countries are so closely tied together.
Your country is standing up, though. Your country is standing up and getting out there and protesting en masse, and it's not just one or two protests. I mean, it's one after the other. It seems like lately, and I don't see that here happening yet. Maybe I need to move to another state. but it's
I see it in because I watch so much news. Probably about 80% of all the news I watch is about America, and it always seems to me that people are standing up there, especially in the school boards and.
Yeah, the little cities. I'm talking about more like the thousands of people standing together. That has a huge impact vibrationally, and I mean, not that these little things don't matter; they do matter. But when we come together, like en masse, like you have been doing there, that's the only way that the Australians can fight back. They don't have a way of defending themselves otherwise. That's how they stand up in a crowd.
I'm proud of those people, the way they've stood up, and they're getting out there. There's a guy called Ozzy Cossack. He's a Russian Australian, and this he's incredible. he's a real leader. He's gone out there. He's getting harassed. He was pulled up on the way to the protest yesterday by the police, and they booked him for something. And then he's got all these followers all around him, and they're all filming it to make sure they got it out. But it's taken people like that. It's funny. I'm an immigrant myself here, and I see a lot of immigrants, people that come in, especially from Eastern Europe, Russia, and from the Middle East, and the Mediterranean. They're taking leadership roles. They're fiery, these guys. I think because they have experienced things in other countries the Aussies who were born out here have never experienced. And so these guys are so fired up to make sure this doesn't happen. They've got fire in their veins, and they're going to fight tooth and nail. Where I think in Australia, we really have had it easy for so long. So a lot of Australians are very compliant. They're very law-abiding, and they trust their government. They trust their medical authorities. They trust their media, especially the older generation. And when you try to tell them, well, you're being lied to, it's like water off a duck's back. Most people just don't see it. But I think people are beginning to notice now. People are beginning to change. And as I said, a lot of the immigrants that have come into the country here are taking a really good lead. I'm proud of them. I think they're doing a really good job. And thank God they are.
Wow. And how is your immigration policy there? Is it tough? I mean, getting into the country in general, or do you have like people coming in boats, just sneaking in like they do here?
No, it's very tough now. The current Liberal, which is actually Conservative, I call them Conservative government. They've been very tough on the boat people, illegal immigration. They basically shut the borders down, but it's very hard to get in and out of Australia at the moment. We're only just beginning to open up again, but it became Fortress Australia for a while. If you're unvaccinated, there is no way you're going to get. You can't even getting into an airport. You're not going to get on a plane. You're not going to get out the country. And they certainly wouldn't let you back in again.
Now you're saying that the news is shifting, right? So are you starting to see things reported like the Israel medical reports and stuff like that, where they're giving the statistics on how, I think the most recent report was that there are more unvaccinated people who are dying. I'm sorry, more vaccinated people who are dying than unvaccinated. I mean, in total, compared to the placebo too. So,
no, well, then they don't mention that on mainstream media, but there have been a few mentions this week. There's been a couple of small, I can't remember specifically what was said, but there was a couple of things that did come out. So I think Sky News Australia, there's been a couple of interviews that they've had, which...
And is that something that wasn't happening this whole time? Is that also something that seems to be an added benefit, or like a slow poke?
There was one guy, Alan Jones. He was on Sky, and he was beating the drum. I mean, he was revealing a lot of this stuff, but he was basically forced to leave. So I think he left 2 weeks ago. They basically said, "Look, your views aren't compatible with our with our media channel anymore," and he's gone.
So people are trying to stand up in the media too, but they're getting whacked still. Like, not whacked, but go away.
I think Sky is the best one over here. Sky here is a bit like Fox, where you've got a few people that like to reveal the truth.
Yeah.
In amongst other people that don't.
Yeah, and then you wonder if that's just controlled opposition. You got to get the ratings, for both sides. And I mean, I don't know what to believe about people anymore. Like, who to trust?
No, I don't.
I see like Hannity and Tucker. Those guys seem pretty legit, but they've also ticked me off in the past too on certain things. And I'm like, how can you all of a sudden flip all like that? Like, were you told to say that, or is that really how you feel?
Yeah, especially around November, January time, I noticed their narrative completely changed.
Yes, right.
And yet it's beginning to change back again. So, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, and that's because that's how they get their money, right? So I just don't know who to trust when it comes to that. I don't trust anyone anymore when it comes to the media. I would rather get all of my information from alternative media, honestly. And maybe do my own research, like you said earlier. You got to do your own research. These people can help you, maybe give you some inside information, but then you can go verify it for yourself. And they usually give you the verifiable data to go after.
I listen to the news headlines twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening. I mean, I used to sit down for a full hour and watch the news. I used to make sure dinner was ready by 6 o'clock, sit down and watch it for a full hour. Now, I normally am cooking dinner when it comes on. And by the time I sit down, I'll put my internet on, and then I'll go over, I'll watch some entertainment, or I'll go to real news. And then I can't sit down and watch the news for an hour now, maybe 5 minutes, maximum 10 minutes. But
even the local news I can't stomach. Even the local news I can't stomach. Even they're getting political. No, usually the local news doesn't do that like much. They were the last bastion of hope for like any kind of news, but now it's like they get involved in the international news more. It's like not just local news, and it's very still. I don't want to say still leaning left most of the time.
Yeah, we have the same from we have a local newspaper that gets delivered. It's free once a week. I'll pick it up, and I just end up throwing it away. I can't read it. It's just
I can't stomach it. It's like I can't watch anybody in Washington speak anymore for more than 5 minutes. It's too much for me. It's like and it's not even what they're saying. It's how, like, as an empath, you pick up on a person's vibration and the arrogance and the ego and all that stuff. There is just evil spewing out of some of these people, and I I don't even want to even tune in with that. I would rather not even care about what they're saying, honestly. If anything big enough comes up, I'll get it through a clip on, TikTok or something. you know, that it can only get the part that's important. The rest of it I don't have to listen to.
No, I don't like listening to the crowd in Washington. I do love listening to Ron DeSantis, though. He's great.
Yeah.
He's a
Yep.
good governor. I wish he was our
Oh
premier here
yeah.
in New South Wales.
He pops up in my feed all the time. I watch all the stuff that he has to say. I wish there were more governors like that all around. There's enough of a split here in the country, I believe. It's almost like a 50-50 split, isn't it, for the most part? But even some of the Republican governors aren't true Republican governors, though. They're not. They're
No.
not standing up as if. Um,
For me, it's
so
not
you
a
know,
left or right thing. For me, is that person representing the people that they're supposed to represent? Do they care
right?
about the people? If they are, and they're doing the right thing by the people that elected them, then fine. If they're not so fine. Right? And it's as simple as that. It's not right or left. It's just, are they doing the
But
right thing by the
in,
population? And if they are,
in this
then I love
country, when people vote, though, they're very much about party, very very much about party, and it's unfortunate because they make assumptions about a person based on that, and they actually do play that game too when they're campaigning. They're going to make all these promises. They make so many promises when they're campaigning. When they get into office, they do what the heck they're going to do because some of these people are groomed and paid to get into those positions, unfortunately. And then when they get in, they don't do anything about what they said they're going to do, and they're not actually supporting left or right policies, like you said. They're on some other agenda. I mean, it's very sad, where politics have ended up in this country. I think the problem doesn't exist just here, though. It exists everywhere. Your country, everyone's country. That's why we have what's called the deep state, right? Pulling the strings everywhere.
Well, I don't like the two-party system. I think the two-party system is open to corruption. I'm hoping it's all going to change. I'm hoping things are
I
going
think
to
it
change.
should be it should be no parties, right? It should just be let's
I
have
agree.
a list of issues and let's vote on the issues. That's what we should be voting on. How do we spend our money? How do we appropriate money? Different things like that. You've got
I've always said you need a
politicians.
council of elders. I say bring in a council of elders. So when I say elders, I don't mean elderly people, but I mean wise people that really know their stuff. So if you're going to be the treasurer, you've got to really know your stuff, right? And you don't represent any factions. And if you do stand for office, you have to stand down from all other activities. You can't be sponsored by people. You can't have people giving you money. You go on the committee. Then you have all these experts that go on the Wise Council. There should be an oversight committee which watches them, and everything they do should have to be in line with the Constitution. And it should be in the interests of the people. And the moment they step out of line, they should be able to sack them just like that. They shouldn't
Yeah.
get any privileges. I mean, I don't think they should earn more than maybe a couple of $100,000 a year for what they're doing and have their expenses covered. But they shouldn't be given free tickets to go to this event and that event and travel around the world. They should be there to do a job.
Yeah, and then
Do the
earn
job.
money for earn millions of dollars for a speech. I mean, they
Absolutely.
have universities spending all this money to listen to these politicians speak,
To,
and
to walk into politics with like maybe $500,000 to your name, and to walk out with 300 million, there's got to be something wrong. And I can't believe, I mean, we've only got ourselves to blame for allowing these systems to operate, to grow the way they have. And I think that's why we're going through what we're going through now, because really humanity
you
has
know how that
allowed.
happened. You know how that happened, Dave? They got us all so busy working
Yes, yeah, exactly.
and raising families, the American dream, or whatever dreams are out there, and you're basically locked into a materialistic system that you're going to work yourself to death until you're almost dead. And they raise the retirement from 65 which was somewhat fair, up to like 70, 75 in order for you to make ends
Yeah.
meet, after
No.
retirement. They say, oh,
Mm.
people are healthier now, they can work longer. No, I don't want to work longer. I want to have time to myself. I want to enjoy my life. I don't want to be doing this forever.
Well, it's
As much as
funny,
I
Rick.
like my job.
When I was a kid in the 60s and 70s, right, I used to tell people, what the future is going to be like. I had a really clear vision of the timeline. I used to watch things like Star Trek, and I used to watch things like the Jetsons and that. And I had a really clear vision. I used to say, yes, we're going to have flying cars by the year 2000. We're going to have this, that, and the other. I used to describe what the world would be like. And I had a really clear vision of it. And then as we approach the year 2000, I'm thinking to myself, I can't believe it. When I flew from the UK to Australia, it took me, I think, it's about 20-hour flight. It took me about 24 hours
Jeez.
to get here, right? 24 hours.
Wow.
Now, the times I went back to visit my mother and my dad back in England, the flight time was exactly the same over the years. I went back 5 times. The flight time was exactly the same as when I first came out here. And I remember thinking, yeah, the planes are bigger. We've now got personal, screens, which we didn't have before. We used to have one movie everyone watched. So there's been a few cosmetic changes, but the essentials are exactly the same. Same flight time, the same grueling flight. The food's no better than it was when I came. In fact, it was worse than when I came out here. We're actually going backwards. The cars look a bit better. They're a bit smarter. They're a bit more aerodynamic, but they're still blowing rubbish out the back.
All right. Yeah.
And
Same
the
old
time,
technology.
well, the timeline I visualized was not here. It was a different timeline. And I remember thinking to myself, probably about 1999, 2000, something's happened. The timeline that I visualized in my mind, it existed, and that's where we should have been. And it wasn't. Even Concorde, right? You had Concorde, and then the French one blew up. And then so we had a supersonic aircraft that could go from London to New York in 9 hours or whatever it was, 7 hours, 9 hours. And that blew up, was never replaced. And it's like we're actually going backwards in some respects.
I mean, it only takes one, like, even in your own, like, an individual person's life, right? It only takes one decision, like you said, what happened with you going to Australia, right? It's like it only takes one decision to put you on a completely different timeline, whether that's for the positive or negative, whatever. But I think the same thing can happen on the collective level, right? Where we collectively decide which path we're going to take. And there's no absolute, but when you're actually thinking about the future, you're looking at the current trajectory of where we're headed,
Yeah.
right? Where it should probably go. And then some big thing happens like 9/11 or whatever, and it kind of shifts us off kilter a little bit onto a different path in fear. And that fear is how they control everything. That's how they control the timeline. That's how they get to keep control this draconian system of social control and debt slavery. That's really what it's all about. This is a slave planet, unfortunately.
Oh,
It's set up
absolutely.
that
I
way.
used to say it. I actually worked in a call center for a while. It's probably the worst environment a human being can work in. It completely dehumanizes you. Everything you say is recorded. Everything that you do, they tell you when you can go to the washroom. They tell you everything. Everything is monitored. It's just the most awful environment. And I thought, what am I doing here? I actually used to work for American company as an underwriter. I had a good job, and then I got retrenched or made redundant from that job, and this other job came up, and I thought, well, yeah, I'll take that for a while. But they liked me, and I ended up staying there. And I was too really lazy to look for something else. So what I thought was the easy route, just because I had a job and income, and I was still trying to pay off my mortgage at the time, I stayed there. And I thought, what am I doing here? And I thought, I know why I'm here. I'm actually here to experience this for a short period. I need to really experience the worst, well, it's not the worst job you can have, but it's one of the most restrictive jobs that you can have. And that came for a reason. I only stayed for 2.5 years, and then circumstances changed. I paid my mortgage off by then. I came into money. I didn't have to work again. But that experience, I still dream about it now. I still dream I'm back there. But I had to really experience that to be able to then help other people. And I now talk to people who are locked into a situation like that, and I can encourage them to say, like, there is something better than that. You can get out of that. You don't have to
Yeah.
submit to the tyranny.
Even within
So
this framework of slavery, there could be something better. It's like we still have opportunity that we can seek out, you know, and that's so true. But think about what the world will be when there isn't that constraint, like where we're able to actually pick the things or learn about things that we really always wanted to do, but we couldn't because of finances or responsibility or whatever. You know, the things that the way that we make decisions a lot of the time is based on what are our finances. Even with
yeah,
some people like dating will look at a person's profile and say, well, if you're not making 300,000 a year, I'm not going to date you. Whatever they have set up these crazy standards. But you know what I mean? It's like everything's based on money, and it's sad that society's become this way. We've become part of the problem. You know. Um, and I want to scale back my life, but I'm so accustomed now. Like I struggled to get where I am. Like I had to work really hard to ever make enough money to own a house, for example. And once I finally got to the level where I could afford that, you realize how much work I had to do to accomplish that. It was ridiculous. Like
oh,
the
yeah.
hours, 80, 90 hours a week, like, just to catch up on educating myself in certain areas or to keep up with technology. It's unbelievable. And then
Yeah,
what could the world be like if we didn't have this monetary constraint?
yeah. Well, when I split up from my wife, I bought myself an apartment, plenty of two-bedroom apartment, but it is near the water, which is good. I worked so hard to get rid of that mortgage. I struggled. I didn't go on holiday. I went without a car for 4 years. I had my son staying with me, and we didn't do a lot. We didn't even get to go on holiday together. So I struggled through all that, but in my mind, I knew I had to get that mortgage paid off. I don't know why. It was an imperative. I just knew I had to do that, and it was perfect timing. It all happened a couple of years before COVID came along and all this disaster happened. And at least now I get an opportunity to help people and to use some of the skills that I was taught, because I've freed myself from the debt slavery system. And so what I've done now is to dedicate my life to helping other people free themselves from the debt slavery system. And this happens to be part of a trend. I mean, I
Dude,
believe the
where do I
timeline I
sign up?
saw, well, the timeline I saw, I believe, is about will come in. As I said, it's about the Star Trek future. What I saw, I believe, is going to happen. It was delayed. It wasn't stopped. We got hijacked along the way. I'm an optimist. I still believe the best case scenario is going to work out. There are people working for humanity. They're working on behalf of God, and I believe that they are going to be successful. So yeah, at times I still get a bit down, and I think, oh, maybe I'm deluding myself. But something deep down inside me tells me that is not the case. And my whole life seems to be timed around this whole event so that I can now do what I'm supposed to be doing, which is helping other people out of that same rut. Because I'd like to see everybody doing. I used to say to people, I used to paint a vision of people doing what they want, what they're good at. So if you're good at storytelling, that's what you will do. If you're good at if you're good at being a doctor, you do that because you want to be a doctor, not because you want to earn money from it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's finding your purpose, right? That's something I would say a good 70%, 60, maybe 60, 70% of the people never experience that, like alignment. It took for me, like I went for years in careers I absolutely hated or was unhappy with, environments that were just abusive, this and that. that all forced me to look at my life and the decisions I was making and how I was always making decisions for security or money, and not thinking about how what skills I had, that I could develop or that I would be interested in, and aligning my interests and my skills together to find my purpose. And that was with computers finally. But it took me taking a week off from work to actually sit and meditate on it in the wilderness, writing down lists and checking them off and seeing where things line up and then feeling into it. And then I just started getting busy. I built a list of what I'm going to do next. And, I started going on interviews, even though I didn't have my degree. I started on the path. I wanted to get in the industry first, while I was going to school. And I didn't think I was going to be successful at that at all. I just was going with how I felt, I felt like that's where I'm supposed to be. And sure enough, now it's 20 something years later, I'm as a systems engineer, that's pretty amazing. Coming from, I went to a trade school in high school, I didn't go right into college right after that. I had a whole bunch of careers, after that, that were just like, running myself in circles and really had me so strapped. But once I aligned with my purpose, I didn't think about the money. I'm like, okay, whatever money comes, right? I wasn't like all about the money. I'm doing this for the money. I stopped that mentality. I said, let me do something that I'm going to be excited about, and then the money will follow. Like the right resources or enough resources will be there for you, for your situation.
Yes. Well, I think that's a nice positive note to maybe end on.
Yeah, it's getting up to the 2 hour mark there. We're at 1 hour and 47 minutes. So yeah, that's a great positive set. And that's why I'm shifting, based on last week's meeting with you. It really got me thinking about how much, like you were saying, I don't convince people anymore, you're saying. And it's like, yeah, I'm not really trying to convince people either. I'm still feel like I need to do the sharing part of it, but I don't have the long conversations that I used to have anymore, where I feel frustrated or like I can't deal with this person anymore. I got to block them because they're being angry and, vengeful or whatever. I don't even have, none of that happens in my life anymore. I've given that up.
Same here. I won't argue with people anymore. There's no point. I mean, I found myself getting really angry and people get angry at me. It's like, nah, it's not worth it. So if someone says to me, oh, I have this situation in my life. Now I got Facebook friends all around the world. I keep in contact with them via Facebook or some of them on my phone. And I'm seeing a lot of people with so many issues at the moment. I mean, there's just a whole gamut of issues. And whenever I hear that, what I do is just try to encourage them, try to share whatever wisdom I'm lucky to have gained over the years. And that's my job now. It's just to comfort. Well, not.
Yeah, and I think we're all coming into that now, right? I think this is what the real reason for coming here is we all feel like confused at times. We're like, well, why did I come here for this? Like, we feel like we're not getting anywhere. But in our hearts, we know we are. Like, something's going on behind the scenes. We're just waiting. We're waiting here to kind of enlighten people as to what went on, how to deal with it, how to cope with it, because it's going to be a shock for a lot of people to accept that they were bamboozled on such a level. And our job is to just hold space for them and lend an ear, a heart, and raise our vibration. And that's the most important thing. Like keeping positive through it all, right?
I joke with a mutual friend, Chuck. From
Chuck.
Yeah. Yep. And he was saying, this is getting too hard. He jokes sometimes. And
he's so smart though.
He's very smart. I joke back with him. I said, we signed up for this mission, soldier. We'll be able to see it. We've got to see it through to the bitter end.
We're going to see it through. That's right.
He's laughed at it. And it's like, well, yeah, we did sign up for it. You wouldn't be here. I mean, I've had friends that checked out just before all this happened. They're gone. It's like, okay, they left early. They were only in their 50s or 60s, but they weren't here to be going through this. I am here going through this, and it hasn't been easy. I mean, I'm still having a hard time now, but I know I signed up for it, so I'm never going to be a victim. Whatever happens to me, I don't think any bad luck has ever happened to me in my entire life that I haven't created myself. And if I've created it on a soul level, I believe I've actually created it for the experience I needed to experience the pain that resulted from it. So I take absolutely 100% responsibility for everything that's ever happened in my life, including where I am right now. I'm living on my own now.
Yeah.
I didn't visualize that when I was at high school or when I first started work. I thought I'd be settled down now with a family. I'd be living in a big house and that. I haven't got any of that. But I realized that wasn't what I was supposed to have at this stage.
No, our focus, like my same thing with me. Like I thought I would be the same boat too, and it seems like relationships, I end up in the same things, and I'm learning a lot from all of those things. But at the same point, I'm not sure I'm meant to be focused there anymore. Like my last one, I just said I just need to focus on my purpose here. Like the way I feel about so strong about the disclosure community and the efforts there, and focusing on healing myself. Like
Yeah.
I really need to slow down and take care of that part of it. We all need
Same
to
here.
do that.
Yeah, I agree.
And
Like I'm still working on myself all the time. I mean, the more this goes on, the more I need to focus on that. It's not that there's somewhere to get to. This is an ongoing process. But I believe the world is changing. I believe we're working towards that.
And we can't expect perfection out of ourselves either. And it's okay to slip up and make a mistake here and there. I know there's people in the community right now who are having a hard time. I think I don't want to say names or anything. They've worked so hard over the years. They're so having such a hard time with what's going on right now, feeling like nothing's moving ahead. But I feel for those people who are not able to sort of see the light at the end of the tunnel on their own. Like you got to see that light within yourself, and
must be
let
so
that
hard.
be. It is so hard, so hard.
Yeah, and then at some stage, when things do change, I think a lot of people are going to be in shock when they discover that nearly everything they've ever been taught is a lie.
It's all a lie. Including their education, history, everything.
Everything. Yeah,
everything's been tainted and twisted to fit an agenda. It seems like.
Those that have woken early, their role will be to help those other people. So when we were out there trying to beat the drum and say, look, this is the way the universe is, and they're arguing back and saying, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, blah 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 blah. Yeah, that was appropriate at a certain stage in this, and it isn't anymore.
Yeah, but I think it taught us a lesson too. It taught us a lesson in not allowing the things of this world to dim our light, right? And because that's how they control all of us. That is the biggest lesson in all of this, is the way that they keep us in fear and under control is through lowering our like motivations. Like we're not motivated to go out and hold a sign or whatever in peace, like doing it peacefully, always peacefully. There are times when you have to defend yourself, against an evil attacker or whatever, but you can not do it with anger, just do it in self-defense as it is. Like what happened with the Rittenhouse case. He wasn't an angry murderer. He was just trying to defend himself. And so if we take that same approach with the disclosure community, where, we're not getting angry about what's going on in the world, we're just allowing it to be, raising our vibration and helping other people. People are going to see that in us. They're going to see that, why, okay, what's this big change I'm seeing here? I want to know more about that, and hopefully that'll be the way that things progress. And I think that's happening anyway. Truth is exposing itself. People are already starting to see what we've been telling them for years. So many so-called conspiracies are becoming truth, and it's undeniable. People can't turn an eye to it anymore. Even when CNN is on there starting to say things that we've been saying for years, then something's happening, like something's changing.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. So here's
anyways,
here's to a golden future. Hey, it's power on,
yes,
and let's keep smiling. That's the main thing. Keep smiling, hope for the best, work for the best, and pray for the best.
you got it, my friend. You got it. Absolutely. Keep praying, keep the faith, and keep smiling no matter what's going on. And find ways
Absolutely.
to me, like looking into the, okay, now maybe we might have a scenario where we, in between all of this, that we might need to survive for a period of time on our own. So I'm looking at the solutions, like you said, focus on solutions and focus where we can bring in some positivity and build some community around it. And that's how you bring people together, I think. Is just finding the things that people really care about. We've been beating this drum for so many years, it's like falling on deaf ears at this point, but it's starting to flip in the other direction and people are starting to catch on. So
Yeah,
I really think it'll
well,
happen.
yeah, I think we'll be having a very different conversation in 6 months' time. Definitely in a year's time. I think the world will look very different in a year's time.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to hold on to that vision.
Yep. Things can happen quick, my friend.
Okay,
So
must be getting late for you now.
yeah, it's getting up there. So let's go ahead and sign off. We'll probably
Okay.
do this again next week. I'll continue on with the survival stuff and everything next weekend. But it always, no matter what we talk about, Dave, it always comes back to the same topics. But it's awesome, like always awesome to have you on and have these deep conversations. It helps me tremendously to keep my own faith and my own happiness. So I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us tonight.
Yeah, same for you. Same to you, Rick. Thank you for having me on the show again. And yeah, all the best.
Absolutely. All right, my friend. We'll
Keep in touch.
keep in touch, and I'll signing off, and we'll see you next time, folks. Have a great
Bye.
night. Bye.